Hey friends, Pastor Michael from Organic Church here with Sydney Erickson, Pastor Holly Daisy, Nick Offolter, and Pastor Roger Deerdorf. Sid, you picked tonight's topic, which is how did your upbringing impact your faith?
Yes.
So you get to start.
Okay.
You didn't learn that last week because you weren't here,
No.
but that's how it works now.
Okay.
There's new
fine.
rules.
New rules to
New
this.
rules.
They change every day.
Yeah.
They do. No.
Oh, real quick, speaking of rules, let's just talk about this. The Fall Festival on Friday. I don't know if it's going to be Holly or Roger that gets pied in the face, but I'm excited to see it.
Oh, no, it's going to be you.
I was going to say, you're in this too.
Not according to our Facebook post, I'm not.
I said
Oh,
that.
I wonder who made that Facebook post.
I said he's incognito.
My wife said I should have just posted it with just the two of your faces and not even included anything.
A or B?
Yeah, A or B. That's it. Those are your only options. I didn't even put so I made it so a thumbs up meant Holly, a heart meant Roger, and I didn't even put one on the picture of Elvis. It's not even a picture of me. I didn't even put anything on there.
Wow. Not a picture of you, but a picture of Elvis.
Yep,
and
exactly.
then they can't even
And
react.
they can't even react. So
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, Dave's son voted for me.
Yes, he did. He did. And I said to him, I knew there was a reason I liked you, Brian.
All right. Well, I think whenever I was kind of browsing through the topics, this one sparked my interest because my childhood did have a huge deal with how my faith is now. And I was kind of thinking today, how that came to be, but it was mainly because my grandma and grandpa, they were big into church in 80s and 90s actually here. And then left in the late 90s and went to Bethel Worship Center, which is where John Stevenson is.
Mm-hmm. We should have him as a guest sometime.
Yeah, I really enjoy him.
That would be wild.
Yeah, I do really like him. Side note, it was right when he first moved here. I don't think he still does any of the AM broadcasting.
I don't think so.
But at that point, he was doing that, and I think my buck that I had shot was, I don't know, featured there or something, and he was like, "Wait, is this Sydney Mackey?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." So we've always had an outgoing relationship, and I'll see him on the bike trail, just walking and listening to his sermons and stuff. So yeah, we grew up there, and that was it was convenient because it was our driveway stopped right here. There's a little alley, 10 steps maybe, and then the parking lot to Bethel.
Yeah.
So it's even I think maybe 8 or 9, I started walk because we would have Wednesday nights for just service and youth group, and then Sunday mornings. Now, if it was cold, I'd say from November to February, my grandma would pick us up because she was driving anyway, but then she'd just have to go around the block and get us. So, but yeah, I mean, and I know my grandma will be listening to this, and so she was a huge part of kind of where my faith came from.
Sure.
So, yeah, I know you guys have different. I think you and Holly are more on the opposite spectrum. But what about Roger and Nick?
Well, when I was a kid, we went to church all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, my dad didn't, but my mom always took us, and we lived over in Dover, and we lived
Shout out to Dover.
So we
Dog pound.
It gets weird in this room. It just does.
But we lived right across the street from the church.
Yeah.
And we would go, Sunday nights. They didn't have a Wednesday service. The pastor, he was a farmer, and he had things to do.
Yeah.
But it was different. Their Bible schools were different. That now there's always a program.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I went to church, went to Bible school, the teacher, they had a program, but it was made right in the church.
Yeah.
Mm.
They didn't buy content.
They didn't buy content. Yeah. And it was, me personally, I think it was better because it was more biblical. Not that the programs now aren't, but I guess
You have to
They're more-
be careful with what you're buying, I think,
Yeah.
with the
They're-
programs.
They're
yeah.
more commercialized.
Yeah. So, but here's the difference too. Back then, that same lady probably taught Bible school every week and didn't complain about it because
Right.
that was her.
Right.
That was how
Yeah.
she did ministry.
Ministry. That was
Now
her
to have
outreach.
somebody do, like, even work in the nursery every week, they're ready to pull their hair out by about the 5th or 6th week
Yeah.
that they've been in there consistently. So it is a lot. It's like the world is a lot different.
That reminded me, I was listening to a podcast today. Sadie Robertson's grandparents, not the Duck Dynasty grandparents, the other side. So her mom's mom and dad, they were actually like a part of the Howard Publishing, do you know? And they were bought out by is it Stevenson and any of the book readers would know. It's like
Simon and Schuster.
yes, that's it. Yes, they were bought out by them. but
Leave it
they
to
had-
Nick.
right? They had
Been around a
started
little bit.
Howard Publishing because their last name is Howard, and they were kind of talking how it all came to be and so on and so forth. But they were basically saying like it kind of started. Something was brought up about the hymns and stuff, like
Yeah.
because one of them was a major singer, but they said we would have to call around and see, hey, we're coming to you next weekend. What are you guys listening to right now? Or, you know, and they would personalize it basically like you were
Right,
saying,
right.
Roger. So just a different way of doing things. Like
Right.
you had to think outside of the box. So
Then, while we're a baby boomer, so there was a lot of kids.
Yeah.
And they used to put a play on, and I had speaking parts.
I was going to say Roger was the tree.
And no, and it was enjoyable. It really was.
we had those too. I did like those.
It's too bad, that we can't get enough young people or young families in to have that now.
Yeah.
And we have enough. So there are some Sundays, there's 20 kids in the classroom.
Well, yeah.
But it's about consistency.
Right,
You can't
right.
plan a Christmas program with 20 kids and then only 7 of them show
Yeah.
up. Who's going to play Joseph now?
Yes.
You've got
Yeah.
me standing up there in this little kid's costume playing Joseph
Yeah.
because that kid didn't show up. It is challenging.
And I'm a lamb.
Yeah. Roger's a tree
yeah.
standing in the
Just
dark.
standing
The
there.
tree.
Yeah, we kind of did the same thing like with the plays, but then another thing I did really enjoy was we would do dramas as far as songs go. I really enjoyed that, and I know they did it here,
Yeah.
back in the day. And
That's how I met my wife.
really,
It is no joke. It is no joke.
yeah.
We won't talk about
A
that.
lot of it is sign language. Ours was kind of dumbed down compared. I can remember the one you did here. I don't know if you were in it or not, but
No,
it was,
I put that together.
really.
That was my
Do you know which
baby.
one I'm about to tell?
Turn around?
Yes.
Yeah, that was mine.
Yes.
Yep. Me and Doug Kearns.
Or Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Total
too.
Eclipse of the
Yeah.
Heart. Yeah. That's the same one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
duh.
it's the same
Oh
one.
yeah.
Doug Kearns approached me about it, and then I helped Mary Barger put that together.
Huh. Yeah.
That was really my first big church project. That was quite
Is that the one
interesting.
where they had the black shirts?
Yep.
Yep.
And they all had different sayings
Yes.
on there. Yeah, that was it. That was it. It still lives on
I was
YouTube,
gonna
by
say
the way.
we could find it somewhere.
Still
We
lives on
could-
YouTube. As a matter of fact,
could share
I
it.
think I have access to the account that it lives on.
Ah.
Yeah, so we should share that. We'll put it.
Yeah.
We'll put it on our Facebook post in the comments with this.
I feel like
I
you
don't
should
remember
elaborate
that.
on it. See, Roger doesn't remember.
Yeah. Well. So I mean, the idea behind it was that, during the turnaround,
Yeah.
each student had something written on their chest, or they had a piece of paper or cardboard, I can't remember which, and it had a sin written on it. And when they would say turn around, they would turn around. And then there was this struggle over this particular girl.
Yeah.
I think it was
And
a
like
girl.
at first she was all like
She was good. She was
good,
happy.
reading her
And then
Bible,
all
just
of these things kept pulling at
attacking
her.
her. Mhm.
And then Spencer Walker, as a matter of fact,
Yeah.
Dale's son, was Jesus in that. And he came in and broke all of those things off of her.
Yeah.
I think I seen that.
Yeah, and gave her freedom.
because
So-
she
You
was
have
about.
that for the public.
Yeah.
I did see
Well, we
that.
did it on Easter Sunday.
Oh, that's perfect.
And then, because we had service in the gym,
Oh.
the most nerve-wracking, one of the biggest church services I think I have ever attended in this building, because we had to move to the gym. We had so
Wow.
many people.
Wow.
So I don't, and then they used it for something else, but I don't remember what it was. So
I'm sure I seen that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, was that secular song?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know what year it was by chance?
Hold on.
I'm dating you.
I'll see if I can find it. No, because I mean, that was seriously, it was when I first started serving.
Serving. Okay.
And yeah, it didn't take long for them to like really find work for me. Let's see if I
I
can
still
find
don't remember that. I mean, I'm sure I was here.
You were. You were.
You were probably in it.
Well, I know you were here because at that
I was
time,
the tree.
Yeah, he was the tree. At that time, I was starting to do worship and you were around.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Well, yeah, I was with you from
Yeah.
day one.
About 2009, 10, 11?
I feel like maybe 11
Mm-hmm.
or 10. Yeah.
we'll keep talking and I'll look. I'll find it. It'll take me a second.
But I knew Jesus back then, but like everybody else, if you don't stay with it, we moved and we got farther away from the church and then didn't go to church and you fall back into that worldly rut.
Yeah. Well, and for me, sorry, you've done. Keep going.
Well, and then when you get that chance to, what I would say, reunite, with the Lord, why? Then you, the older you get, you realize everything that you could have and you should have, but you didn't do, and I don't know. It just once you have it, you don't really lose it,
Right.
but I don't know. It just the Lord's always been with me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like you said last week, even if you're not, or if you think you're not with God, like He's
Right.
still with you.
Right? Yeah. He's still, especially if He's got a plan for you. I didn't know the plans that He had for me, but
He knew him though.
I guess I don't know.
Or Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, plans of good and not evil, a plan that will prosper you. And He has. He
Oh
has
yeah,
one.
Yeah.
yeah. He has blessed me. More than I deserve. But
It was 12 years ago.
12 years. So that was 2010? No, 2011.
2011.
Huh.
Yeah.
I was thinking when Doug came to this church, that's how I put that together.
Yeah.
It was about 2011.
Yep. And so, yeah, because Doug and I remember after we did that when Doug, we're way off topic. I remember when we did that when Doug is like, we've got to do another one. And he and I went to Jerry's and we probably watched 100 videos sitting in the booth at Jerry's, like trying to figure out like which one of these is compelling,
Yeah.
which one of these would be good. And we never did another one. We never. And I think what happened, that youth group graduated.
Right.
And it was such a huge blow to the youth group. There was nobody left. I think there were 3 people left.
Like you
at
have
that
to
point.
start over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So I did not actually find that video, and I'm sure I'm in the right place. But I found the junior youth dance routine that was on the same day. We did the exact same day. So I can see that one. It was 12 years ago. So I will. It's certainly here. Just for whatever reason, doesn't pop. Like it's sorted weird on mobile. So I will find it and I will post it in the comments on our Facebook page for sure. So
Awesome.
I still don't remember the program.
it was good. It was good stuff.
What had to be?
It was. Of course it was.
You did it.
I produced it.
That's
Come on,
right.
man. Give me a break.
Duh.
I remember, like, we recorded that with one of those, like, little tiny handy cams. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like, little tiny itty bitty camera. I was standing
That
on.
still opened
this is
out
no
somehow?
joke. I was standing on a stack of tables in the back of the gym recording that because I wanted to be above the heads of all of the people.
Yeah.
So all of those plastic Lifetime tables, we had them stacked in the back. I was standing on the back recording.
So if you hear anything drop, it's
Yeah.
Michael.
Yeah, it's me falling off the stack of tables. But, yeah.
Huh.
No, that really is how I met my wife, though.
Like not that night, right? Just like that.
No, I didn't like actually meet
Forming
her
that.
until no, I didn't even meet her till much later.
Oh.
But she was there that night, and that
Okay.
was like kind of the start of the
Ah.
when she started to put it together.
That's when she set eyes
Yeah,
on
is that
you.
when
Yes.
she said
Yeah.
that?
She's
no,
like,
that was
she's
a
like, who
completely
put this
different
together?
situation. But I think that was probably one of those moments for her, like, okay, this is coming full circle.
Right.
Like now we're in the same church and all
Yeah,
of those
yeah.
things. Yeah, but I still had no idea who she was. I was too busy flirting with the waitress at Carrabba's. I love you.
That was the wrong answer.
I know. Trust me. I know.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Nick, what do you think?
Well, I really like this topic because I don't mind saying I have a really good memory of my childhood. I remember a lot of things. I can remember a lot of things from when I was really little. I'm talking 3-4 years old.
Wait till you get
I have
older.
like, hopefully I don't lose it. But a lot of snapshots in my
Yeah.
mind, and so I can remember a lot of things. And one of the first things I remember is, my mom. We said the Lord's Prayer like every night.
Mm-hmm.
So right off the bat, that was, instilled in me
Yeah.
from when I was a little kid. And like I said, I could still see those snapshots, of either laying in bed or kneeling by the bed and my mom, sharing the Lord's Prayer with us and us going through that. And both my paternal and my maternal grandfathers were both passed before I was born. And especially with my mom's dad, even though he had passed, it's like I knew him from the time I was a little child because my mom would talk about him and she would swear like I was him like all over again. Because he passed away in March of 79 and I was born in November of 79.
Oh, wow.
So she was pregnant with me when he passed away, and so she always, felt, there was a special bond there. But the interesting thing is about that is that she would talk about him and she would talk about his religious, personality. She would talk about him and about his religion and how he did things and how he instilled that in her.
Yeah.
So I knew that part of him even though I never met him.
Yeah,
So that
that's-
was kind of neat. Like
that
I
is
like I
neat.
said, I got to know him even though he had already passed on.
Yeah.
And over the years, she would give me, like, she had a lot of his personal possessions. So one thing that he had is he had a Washington Redskins coat that was his. So at some point she gave that to me, and that's why I became a Redskins fan, was because of that, because of course it belonged to my grandfather. So
Right.
it seemed like a good reason, to
To
do
be
that.
a fan. Yeah.
And then I got a little bit older, and he was Catholic. They're Italian. They're Panchers. And I think like the Italian, the real version is like Pancheri or Pancherio, something like
Okay.
that. So they were real Italian. So they were Catholic. And when he passed away, the last thing that they took off of him was his Catholic cross. And when I got old enough, she gave it to me. So that was kind of like another, link between, how he felt about God
Yeah.
and kind of passing it along to me.
Yeah.
So, so that was another kind of thing that got me close to the Lord early in life. And we did have the same picture that's in Pangrazio's of Jesus.
Yeah, the one that used to hang over by the jukebox. I think the jukebox is gone now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still there now,
Yeah.
even though they remodeled.
Yeah.
Well, we had that same painting in our house. So that was another thing. It's like I grew up from a very early age looking at that picture, knowing who it was, and just automatically having some kind of connection,
Yeah.
some kind of, relationship with them.
Yeah.
And then, of course, as a little kid, we'd go into Pangrazio's and I'd be like, hey, there's that guy again.
He's following me.
Yeah. So, and we'd eat there like every Sunday. So it was like a lot of those little things that, was collective. And of course, we went to, I can't say that we went to church every Sunday. I don't remember if we went every Sunday, but we went to the Methodist church there on the west side in Yerricksville. So that's where I, went to church when I was a kid.
The one that's on that weird point.
Yeah.
West Side.
West side.
I was waiting
Shout
for
out,
that. I'm like, I can't say it because I've never lived on the west side.
Well, I always
Well, you
think
have an experience life.
Yeah.
have you?
the West Side Chargers.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if you weren't a West Side Charger when you were a kid.
That's right.
Hey,
You
I still got one of them little coats. It was my
Oh, do you?
son's. Yeah.
So,
cool.
side note,
Yeah.
but where I was living,
Pee Wee football people. Yeah,
my
they don't-
childhood, like where I lived on this street. This is gonna sound. I'm gonna have to have
You
a
lived
backstory.
you lived on the street?
Basically, no. I'm just. So I lived on 5th and Water. I think that's 5th. That goes right to the junior high. Yeah, that's 5th.
Yeah.
So, but we went to Eastport, but then 2 houses behind us, they went to Trenton.
Trenton.
Guess who those 2 girls were? Emily and Caitlin, my stepsisters,
Oh.
who became weird, but yeah, they became my stepsisters. They were my neighbors, then they became my stepsisters. But they went to Trenton, and we went to Eastport. I'm like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Because we were like right on the border.
They must have been superior.
Apparently. Apparently.
That's why you were living on the street.
Now, when I was a little girl, we lived on Water Street,
Oh.
right over the overhead bridge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
And the big green house. It was a big,
Oh.
right beside Plotners, I think, lived there.
Yeah.
There's Johnson's,
Yes, right beside there.
Plotners, and then we lived in the big green house.
That's the house I grew up in.
No.
I swear.
No.
Not the big green house.
Is
This
it
is
tan now?
Really
It's
happening.
gone now.
Oh, so it's a double lot now.
Yes.
So there used to be a volleyball
Like-
net
Wow,
there.
that almost.
There used to be a volleyball
That's
net there
scary.
years ago.
Yep.
My dad put that volleyball net there, and when he was digging the holes, because he just put the post in and then the concrete, like he found a bunch of bricks, and he's like, there must have been a house here.
Yep. It was a beautiful home.
How
I
about
never know
that?
why they would tore it down.
How about
Yeah.
But
that?
I
That's
went to
something.
Eastport.
Oh, really?
Living right there, I went to Eastport.
That's weird.
So bizarre.
She must have been a bad kid.
Yeah.
Let me tell you. This is
We're like in uncharted territory right now.
when Holly went to the junior high.
Yes.
Okay. And how much younger are you than her? She's 32.
I'm 27.
Okay.
You know what? I think she did flag with my stepsister.
That just made me feel really old.
Okay, so when you would get off the bus
Mm-hmm.
and you would walk to your house with your sisters,
Yes.
I prayed for you every day.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't know yet. But
Oh,
I prayed
full
for you.
circle.
I prayed for you little girls every day.
Oh,
Because
well,
I would
thank
sit
you.
right there where the buses come in.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, oh, Lord, you bless them girls. You meet their heart's desires. And
Oh,
How
my
cute.
gosh.
ain't that?
That's amazing.
Well, it worked most of the time because
Most
my
of the time.
sister was walking. She wasn't with me. I think she had volleyball practice. So she came home, got dressed, and then went to the junior high for volleyball practice. And our neighbors right behind us, they had a pit bull.
Oh no.
They bit her in the butt.
Oh,
geez.
no.
Yeah. But she's fine.
Yeah.
She didn't need anything. She's still living.
Oh goodness.
That's crazy though.
Wow.
That is wild.
Yeah. But I know you from Adam.
Yeah.
But so
wild.
you never know who's praying for
Yep,
you.
that's
You
right.
never know.
Exactly.
And during that time, we needed some prayer. I'll just say that.
Aw. I'm glad God used me then. That's awesome.
All right, Nick. West Side Chargers. I don't know where we were, buddy.
Well,
It's up
over
to you to
now.
pull us
Yeah.
back.
You said you were on the West Side Church.
Oh
yeah, well, like
Yeah.
I said, we went to the Methodist, so I remember going to church frequently. Like I said, I don't think we went every Sunday, but I remember going to Sunday school. So yeah, so I had an early relationship with Christ. You know, like I said, there's a lot of collective things there in my childhood that built that relationship early, so that I would be able to carry it, you know, into high school and adulthood, and kind of I had something to build on,
Yeah.
which was good because by the time I was just getting into high school and my mom got cancer, so then I kind of had to fend for myself a lot, and so again I had that relationship to fall back on, and I think by that time I was actually reading the Bible, and I had bought a Bible of my own, started studying it a little bit, and then. Like I said, that cross that belonged to my grandfather, so I had it, and I would wear it. And that's the thing. I wasn't Catholic, but it was just that link.
Yeah.
That was something belonging to my grandfather, and of course. But I gotten out of high school, and it's real funny because my wife and I were just talking about this, and so it kind of falls into place. But I had a cousin who was my mom's brother's son. He ended up committing suicide like in 2003. And so we went to the funeral. And, you know, I talked to God a lot about it and prayed a lot about it. And I had that cross. And I don't have any kind of, you know, there's nothing in the Bible or nothing, you know, in God's word that backs this up. But in my heart, I felt like I had to give him that cross. Like, so I asked them if I could, you know, if they would bury him with the cross, because to me, it felt like, because I know, you know, suicide, you know, we can argue that, you know, what happens, you know, in the event of that with the afterlife and moving forward with the Lord. But I really felt like that was my way of interceding and going to the Lord and saying, you know, I'm giving up something. To me, I really treasured that. And I didn't even tell my mom I was going to do it. You know, because she might told me not to. You know. But I just felt compelled that I had to do that. And so they agreed to do it. And so it was placed in the casket with him. And so that was just always my, like I said, my way that I felt like if I could intercede for him somehow and talk to the Lord, because he was a tremendous guy. He's just one of those people where you never would have assumed that he had any depression, would have had any reason to do that. It was so shocking. You know, still don't know to this day why. But that was my way, being, you know, just a few years out of high school and being at the point where I was with the Lord, that felt to me like that's what I was supposed to do. And so I just think things like that are funny, how things all work out. That, you know, both my grandparents are, my grandfathers are gone before I was born. And then, you know, I get that cross and then life happens and that, you know, that situation. And so it all just kind of fell into place. And I think about that a lot, that, you know, should I have done that? Should I not have done that? But I still feel to this day like, I think it was, you know, it was the right thing to do. I mean.
Now, was he on the same side of the family as your grandpa?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
And he looked a lot like him. You know, my mom would always say I look just like her dad, but I look at pictures of him now and I'm like, I kind of see some resemblance, you know, but it's not, you know, like, but he really did. I mean, I think he really did look like my grandfather. And like I said, he was intelligent and just, you know, very outgoing, friends with everybody, and just a really great guy. And so that's kind of how my childhood was, and how I, you know, so I felt like I got a really good start having a relationship, because I got to have an early identification. Not only, like I said, I put a face to it early, like I said, with the, you know, we had pictures of him in our house. So I had that. So I knew he, you know, felt like I knew what he looked like, you know, so I knew who I was talking to. And that's the other thing. I had that early dialogue because my mom taught that with the Lord's Prayer. And that was the other interesting thing. We would do the Lord's Prayer, and then, of course, we would pray for whatever it is we were praying for, or whomever we were praying for. And we would always pray for, you know, my grandfathers in heaven and stuff like that. So it just all kind of, you know, came together for me early.
For sure.
And so I was able to build on that.
Awesome.
Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun.
You guys' turn.
Holly gets to go first.
Okay, I'm contemplating. Well, my mom passed away when I was 15. And so I try to hold on to the memory of her. But that's hard.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 62 now.
Yeah.
And so I can remember the Fisher Girls, which is Lori Liner now. She married to Mark Liner.
Oh, yeah.
Well, her mom and dad were, what was their names? Her mom's name was Toots, and her dad's name was Pete. And they went to the Third Street Church, Methodist Church. So that's where I went.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I remember seeing them there when I was because they lived out by us too, out at Newport, I believe. Yeah, the Leinards.
Oh, well, this is Lori's mom and dad.
Okay,
the Mr. and Mrs. Fisher, and they would take me to church with them every Sunday. And then when I got big enough, the church bells would ring, and I would walk myself over.
Yeah.
And they had Bible school and summers activities, and I really enjoyed it. And then my mom, I know we went to Denison Foursquare because she went there when Reverend Brady was there, and Reverend Grimes did her funeral.
And that was when they were still using the old building.
Yes. And but my mom got sick when I was about in the 3rd grade, and she got sugar diabetes and had cataracts removed, and they hemorrhaged, and she went blind. So at that age of life, I became the woman of the house.
Primary caregiver.
Yeah.
Yes. And I, it was like my 10-year-old life became a 15-year-old, just like that.
Like that.
And so I can remember catching the bus and going to Denison Foursquare Church. And I can remember it being, if you made so many Sundays in a row, then you got a gift or you were recognized. I forget what it was. But oh my gosh, I worked so hard to be able to achieve that. And wouldn't you know, we had a snow day.
Oh, no.
And the bus didn't come. And then for a while, it seems like we went over to the Church of God in Denison. And we really that must have been where we were going when she passed, because after she passed, that's where I went to church probably till I was, 15, 16 in high school. Well, then, church wasn't cool.
Yeah.
And so I stepped back. And, but I always knowed in my heart that Jesus loved me. Don't remember not knowing that. I always prayed, but I don't remember my mom teaching me that. I don't know how, maybe she did, but that was a long time ago. But my mom was very laid back. Like, she didn't drive. Never did she drive. She didn't work. She had 3 different generations of children. My dad, all he did was work. When my mom passed away when I was 15, I didn't even hardly know my dad. We had to learn to build a relationship.
Yeah.
And then when I rededicated my heart to the Lord when I was probably early 20s, then my dad got saved. But by this time, now he's a shut-in because he had bladder cancer and he couldn't hold his urine. So now he's a shut-in. And I took care of him until he passed. And I don't know. I just think that God, I don't know. It just seems like he's always been a part of my heart and life. And I think by being a caregiver and having to learn how to maintain a household, all that made me very responsible at a very young age.
Sure.
And, to this day, I'm not very good at letting my hair down.
Well, I think it's like we were talking about last week when I was saying, I self-control and that reserve, and for me the same reason, because I always felt like I had to keep it together for everybody else in the family, even though I didn't really have that responsibility. But I put it on myself, and I felt that way because I had to grow up at an early age, and so I didn't let my hair down either because you had to keep that. You had to keep
it together, or else everyone else is. I thought that was over with me. Like, all right, that died when I was 17, we'll say. And then we're sitting at my grandma's funeral, and Shai just breaks down in tears and lays on my shoulder. I'm like, nope, now I can't. I have to stay strong for her.
I can't afford to cry.
Yes.
I have to be the
so
tough
I mean, when I thought it was gone, nope, there it is. Because it just snap back right into place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
It is
crazy.
muscle memory.
Yeah.
It's very much so muscle memory.
Yeah, I think I've always been a bit reserved. Like for me and you to get up there on Sunday mornings and tell jokes, I mean, that is totally out of the box for me.
But so let's back up to when we first started doing that. You didn't do that initially. That took like, I don't want to say a lot, but that growing in comfort and just being there and being okay with it. I mean, for the love of Pete, you ate a grasshopper or cricket.
A cricket.
Yeah, I mean, in front of the entire church. I mean, I thought you were going to upchuck, but you ate a whole, like a cricket. Like, you probably wouldn't have done that
Oh, no.
in most other situations. So,
No, but I think that for one thing, maybe this isn't biblical, I'm quite sure, but I never wanted my mom to look down from heaven and see me doing something I shouldn't.
yeah,
And I know that's not,
yeah,
my focus should have been God.
Yeah.
But
But as a child,
as a young child,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just, and it always kept me on the straight and narrow. My dad worked afternoons. Tell you, I could have went places. But
On the west side.
on the west side. But that always kept me very straight and narrow, and I never want to disappoint her.
Yeah.
But as I grew, then that became to God.
Yeah.
But I'm glad for that, because I'm telling you, it could have been bad.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Could have been a whole different course for my life.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I feel that way too, because like I said, when my mom got sick, I mean, she was a stay-at-home mom. My dad worked all the time. So, yeah, I didn't have a lot of supervision at that point. I was like 12, 13. So, yeah, after school, I could have, did whatever I wanted to do. But, I stayed home and played my guitar and felt like I should be home.
Yeah.
I just felt like I should be there and, not, just going crazy.
I think it helped me to be a rule follower.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
most people don't like rules.
Yeah.
I like to be told
Yeah.
the order to do it, what to do. I enjoy
There's comfort in boundaries.
Yeah.
There's,
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
certain amount of comfort there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and and that's why I think it's so important that, children, we need to do everything we can, if you have children, to establish that relationship with him early, even if it's just like doing the Lord's Prayer every
Right.
night, even if it's just, like I said, for me, those visuals, you put it all, because as a child, that's kind of how you
Yeah.
do it, because you're
Learn
very
things to
visual.
begin with. Yeah.
So the more visuals you can have of him, the more great stories you can have about him that you learn. That's what really instills it in a child early, is learning, so it's not about, all the rest will come later,
Yeah.
but it's about establishing that,
Well, like
foothold
whenever
right from the beginning.
I began to run my household, we had dinner every night at 5:00. We had prayer every night. We had routine that we stayed with. But I never had that in my life.
Yeah. But that you gained that from the experience that you had in your life, because that's what you would define as stability. And because your mom died at a young age, you didn't have a relationship with your dad at that point, stability was important to you. You can create that stability then for your
generation.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, we had dinner at 5. We were in church. Dave and I have always been very family oriented, very try to be Christ-like, be an example before. But I just think that my childhood and my upbringing brought me to the place where that's what I desired for my family. Because maybe as a little girl, I wanted that. I don't know. Mom and dad in church with me. And I remember telling Holly when she was a little girl, 10, you're so blessed to have a mom and dad that are truly, deeply in love with each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
Yeah.
That was an example before her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That your dad comes home every night. We have dinner. You have clean clothes to put on.
Yeah.
They're folded and hung.
Right.
I never had that.
Yeah.
Right.
Not that I can recall.
Yeah.
Like I can remember one time it was the brownies. Remember when the girls were brownies and Girl Scouts?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And all the other girls had brownie outfit and I didn't. And my mom had all these clothes stuck up in this hole. And I'm just ripping and tearing, trying to find something to wear. But in my heart, I wish that they would have been hanging on a hanger.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Holly had that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I never.
Yep.
But just just so many things that I didn't have in life that I so wanted to give to her. And now I do that for Remington.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we bring Remy to church every chance we get. He his first day home from, you know, his first Sunday home, he was in church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Nana and Papa.
Yeah. Yeah. And consistency is key with kids. It really
Yeah,
is.
it is.
Really is. So, my turn.
Mm-hmm.
You have the floor.
West Side.
So, West Side.
People in Canada are like,
What?
They're like, are they on like
West Side of what?
West Side?
I'm telling you, you just had to live it.
are they in L.A.? What are
Yeah,
they talking
yeah,
about?
really. You did just have to live it. You did just
West
have
Side
to
of
live
Cleveland?
it.
What?
So I did not grow up in church in any way, shape, or form, other than the occasional my parents putting us on a church van and sending us to a small church out by Superior Clay. I don't even remember the name of the church.
Was
I
it a
remember
blue
That's out in
van?
Newport.
What color was the van?
I think it was white. It could have been blue.
I just remember an old blue one. When I was,
Newport
you know.
Church.
Yeah, Newport.
Okay.
That'd be the
So
only church
and like
out that way.
I can picture the church. I could probably drive
Was
you
it
to
by
the church.
the train tracks?
That I don't recall.
Okay.
But the church it's not a hill, but the church sat on a little hill and the driveway was kind of a U shape out in front of the building. So like the van would drive all the way around the U shape, drop you off at the front and then would go around. And I remember we would go into the church, we would sit down for just a few minutes and then we would be dismissed back to children's ministry. And it was kind of like our gymnasium, and it may have been in the basement. That part I don't recall specifically, but it had hard partitions set up in between. So like there were 3 or 4
dividers.
classes. So it was
Yeah.
dividers. There were 3 or
Yes.
4 classes in that same space. And they had different teachers for different age groups, but it was one space for everybody. And I remember that church because I remember my sister, I'm going to use air quotes, getting saved, quote unquote. Like I did at the time, I had no idea what that meant. But when she got saved,
Quote unquote.
quote unquote,
Yeah.
she got those awesome little tabs you put in your Bible to tell you which book of the Bible, what page is.
Yeah.
And I was like, she got like this awesome little gift, and there were all these little tabs that she put in her Bible. Because my great grandma bought us Bibles when we were little and had our names pressed into the front of them. Still have the dumb thing. Like, and I say dumb thing because when she gave it to me, I was probably 4 or 5 years old. Like,
I wanted a Nintendo.
yeah, right. And I was like, I couldn't read it. I didn't understand what the red letters meant.
There's no pictures
Yeah,
in this.
right. Yeah. What's the Sea of Galilee? Like, what is this thing? Like, it's got a map in the front.
on, Grandma.
Yeah. But so I remember getting the Bible. I remember my brother had a blue one, my sister had a white one, and I had a red one. Okay? We all 3 went. And my sister got the little tabs for her Bible. And I said, I want some of those. How do you get those? And the lady said, well, you have to be saved. You have to know Jesus as your Lord and Savior. And I said, well, I know Jesus is my Lord and Savior. And I'll never forget this. It was a very serious conversation. She like took me aside and there was another teacher there and they're like, so did you really mean that? And I'm like, mean what? I had no idea what I was doing other than trying to get the tabs for my Bible, right? Like that was what it was to me. Okay. So same church, fast forward. I never got the tabs for the Bible. I don't know if they're like, this kid's a liar. Like he's just trying to manipulate us for tabs. I don't know.
They didn't pick you up next week on the bus.
Yeah. Pretty soon they stopped picking me up. They're like, your brother and sister can come. You got to go back in the house. I remember in that same church, there were 2 incidences. There were probably 3 that were like ingrained in my mind. One was we didn't go to children's church one Sunday. We stayed in the big church. And the pastor's office door was off of the platform. So his door was right to the left of the platform. Like that's where his office was at. And so when he would come out of that door
Right onto
and
the stage.
right onto the stage.
Yeah.
Now I say that was his office. That's how in my mind it was. It could have been a storage closet. I don't really know. But actually, here's the reason. Because during that Sunday, it was geared towards kids. And he's like, well, I found this cute little kitten outside and I've got to take it back into my office. And he opens that door, he goes into the room and you hear this like hissing and screaming and all of this noise. And he comes out and his suit is shredded and the tie is all torn up. And it was supposed to be funny. I don't remember it being funny. I remember it being horrifying. That's what I remember. I remember that moment. I remember another where they did a play and it was an Easter Sunday play and they had a paper mache rock that they rolled away from the tomb. And I thought it was real. And I was like, how are they moving that giant rock? Like I was just fascinated by it. And then the last thing that I remember there is the one classroom worker was teaching class, and somebody leaned against one of the partitions. It fell over, hit her in the back of the head, and knocked her out cold.
Jeez.
Man.
Okay, so those are my church memories.
Perfect.
That's how I was raised in church, okay? So what's ironic, though, is that much later, matter of fact, this was probably 2 years ago, even just that, it's been that recent, I saw that lady.
That got knocked out.
They got knocked out, and I recognized her right away. And I went over, and she was sitting on a bench.
How's your head?
She was sitting on a bench, and I leaned over. I got down on one knee, and I said, "Hey, did you used to teach Sunday school?" And she's like, "I did." And she's kind of like puzzled and looking at me, and I'm like, "My name's Michael Brindley. You guys used to pick us up in the van," and I went, and she like immediately knew who I was, and I told her about those memories, and she's laughing because like, of all the things she taught me,
Right.
these are the 3 memories I have learned in nothing. So I didn't have a church upbringing. I didn't truly know Jesus until I was in my 20s. Like it was that late in life. So I had no like basis for what that meant.
Yeah.
So when I started coming here, and then you would hear people talking about like, because I was in this church. I got saved in this church, the church that we are currently sitting in.
Speaking in tongues.
Yeah,
Holy
this is the
Spirit.
church I
Like,
know.
Whoa.
Fun story about speaking in tongues. I brought my best friend who is a Baptist.
They
one
never
time.
came back.
Well, she came and she said it there. And Florence says, so listen, we're all just going to pray in our heavenly language for a minute. It's a Wednesday night. And everybody's over here praying in their
You're
heavenly
like,
language.
let me take you to the
And
corner.
no. So she speaks Spanish fluently. So she starts speaking Spanish because she's like, well, I'm not going to be left out. But yeah, she never came back. That was it.
That's like whenever people say you don't know the song, so you're just like watermelon.
Yeah. She just speaks in Spanish. Yeah. And she was probably calling us all crazy. I don't know. But so I didn't truly know Jesus until I was here, until I came here and got saved. And interestingly enough, even through that, like initially getting saved to being like fast forward 5 years, there was still a lot of turmoil. Like I hadn't given up on a lot of the things that I knew I should have given up on much earlier than I should have. So it's kind of wild to be sitting here saying that I've been saved for 16 years, 17 years, 18 years, something like that. Because I could have been 19. I don't know exactly what year it was. But and so it hasn't been that long, but have been called for such a time as this.
Right.
So it's a really kind of unique experience. I will say this, if it weren't for all of the people that supported me during all of that crazy part of my life, I wouldn't be standing here. You know, you give shout outs to people like, you know, Florence and my dad and Jeff Kearns and all of those people who would walk up to me and say, you know, we're going to be there for you no matter what. I remember when I was in trouble, Jeff and Nick Kearns would go to court with me. They didn't have to do that, but they did because they knew I needed support. And so they went. It was just, I would have never been where I was without that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a wild ride. Now, to say that I know Jesus, I want to say this. I don't know that I know Jesus well enough. And the reason I say that is my wife and I were joking that you guys know who Steve Harvey is, right?
Yeah.
Steve Harvey's a church man.
Oh, yeah.
Like he's like a real church man. Like he
Did you see that where he said he was given his introduction, if he had to introduce Jesus to the world when he comes back, how he would, it's great.
I'll have to look for it.
Yeah.
But he's
'Cause
funny. He's super funny,
Yeah.
but he's super real about his relationship with Christ. But he said, like, if somebody steps to his kids, he knows Jesus, but he doesn't know Jesus well enough. Like, things will go sideways real quick. Like, I like Jesus, but I don't know about that much.
It's like Harry will say, Jesus left the room.
Yeah. Jesus
turn around for a
He's
minute.
in the hallway right now. We need to talk. But I realized that, like, and so I shared this before we started the podcast, and so I wanted to share it again while we're on the podcast. But, you know, when I say that I know Jesus, you know, we think that means something high and lofty, but really it means we're forming a relationship, and there's always new revelation. There's always new avenues to pursue, and he'll take things that you've always seen as a roadblock, things that have stopped you, and he'll turn them around. So think about somebody who was unchurched the majority of their life to come to Christ in their 20s and be able to pastor in their 30s.
That's right.
That's crazy, right?
Right.
So, you know, I was saying earlier, we all, and I joke about this, I love kids to some degree, but I like to be able to fill them full of sugar, shake them up, and send them home. Like, I don't necessarily want all of your kids at my house.
You'd be a good grandparent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly, like, I'm a good uncle, like my nephews, Ian and Jack, they love coming to our house because I love on them and they do whatever they want. I don't care. The only thing they can't do is scream. I don't allow them to scream. Anything else they want. You want Doritos, eat all the Doritos you want. You want a popsicle, have 5. I don't care. Because you're going to go back home to your mom. That's her problem, not my problem, right? So, but
my kids can't have them, but you can.
Exactly. No red dye in my house, but there's 2 red popsicles in there that you can have. But so I've always had a soft spot for kids to some degree, but I have always been very hard on my children. So it's been like, I'm a boss, and so I expect my kids to be employees and that they can conform to the rules of the house because I have said those are the rules, but children do everything but adhere to the rules, right?
Right.
So it has been just through the grace of God that he has been like changing my heart towards how I interact with my kids. And I've shared this in the past, and just being able to walk into the room. So we had an episode with Easton the other day. I'm like, John Family Service is going to show up at my house after I tell this story. It's just going to probably happen. One of our Canadian listeners is going to call John Family Service. But Easton has oppositional defiance disorder. So he tends to argue with whatever he can argue with. And it's just a switch. It flips and you can't, what worked yesterday with reasoning with him doesn't work today. And so we had to pick Sissy up from from cheerleading, which is at the park. So we all get out of the car, we go over, and they're like, can we go play? Fine. We go over to the park, we let them play. We're walking from the park back to the car, which is probably about a 10-minute walk. About halfway through it, Easton just ain't walking anymore. He's like, I don't like you. I'm not coming. Like, and I mean, he gets mean. And it's a switch that flips, and you can't reason with him. And I said, okay, well, we're going to keep walking. And when we get to the van, we're going to leave.
Yeah.
Now he's 10 paces behind us. And so we get in the van, shut the doors, and he's standing there with his arms crossed staring at me. I put her in reverse and I start driving away. That kid ain't never run so fast in his life.
Now, you weren't going to leave the parking lot.
No, I was never going to leave him. I was never going to leave him, but I needed him to think that I was. So he comes running to the car. I put the car in park and I open the door and he stands there again next to the car. So I'm going to count to 3. You're going to get in this car. 1, 2. Before I get to 3, he was in. He's sitting in the back and he's just saying awful things, awful things. What he fails to realize is that he's already pushed me over the top.
Right.
And
he still thinks he's
he thinks he's on the upper, he thinks he has the upper hand right now. And one of the captain's seats in the back of the van is down. So it makes it easy access into the back seat of that van because he's in the way back. And man, I put that van in park. I climbed in the back and I smacked his mouth and I said, don't you ever. And he's screaming the whole way home. We drive the whole way home and I'm telling him, if you don't stop screaming, you're going to get it again when you get home. Now, mind you, he's squirrely. You can't hit him hard because he's flopping around like a fish out of water. But we get home and he's screaming through dinner and he's just being absolutely belligerent. And so I was sitting on the couch and when he finished, I said, come here. And he walks over to me slowly and he gets right up to me and I wrap my arms around him and I pull him in for a hug and he just melts in my arms because he thought he was going to get in trouble.
Right.
Now, old Michael, he would have been getting whooped at that point. But that's like, it was just and it was a moment for me to go, okay.
Well, and you proved your point. You
exactly.
knew you were the.
Yes. He knew that I was calling the shots.
You were the upper hand. Yeah.
But to have that revelation in life, to know that like, there is a work being done every day, constantly. Right. And like I said, I might know Jesus, but I don't know Jesus well enough because had I just been okay with where I was 5 years ago, chances are at this point my wife would have left because she wouldn't have been able to tolerate the attitude and it's make no bones about it. I am a boss. And so when I go in the house and I say to my wife, hey, did you get that taken care of? And she says no. And I'm like, well, why not?
Yeah. Yeah, like you're...
Like, that's because that's how I would...
Yeah, you haven't switched off.
Right. So it's really funny to see that you have to process that. And I've made the commitment that I am less work, more home now than ever. But my upbringing fixed all of that. It made me who I was because I recognized all of the faults. And I don't want to say faults of my parents as if they are terrible people, but to be able to look at, I don't ever want to be made to feel that way. I don't ever want to treat somebody that way. And my parents were never bad to us. My dad worked 2 jobs to provide for Christmas for us. My mom worked most of her life, but I can look back and say, okay, I recognize that my parents didn't have a healthy relationship for a large portion of our lives. They didn't handle their finances properly. Right. They did a lot of things that I don't agree with. I've made my share of mistakes. So I can't fault them for any of those things. But when I recognized it and said that I'm going to break those generational curses, I'm going to teach my kids how to balance a checkbook. I'm going to teach my kids how to manage credit card debt. I'm going to teach my kids all of those things that I never learned how to do.
Yeah.
The school's not teaching it. And so if a parent's not, nobody's gonna.
Right.
And so my childhood, my upbringing impacted my faith because it taught me that my flesh isn't always right. You know, that desire to always have or to always do isn't always right.
Yeah.
So it allowed me to walk more closely with Christ because I was able to figure out all of the things that I'd screwed up on. I screwed up because I made personal choices versus spiritual choices.
Well, see, it's a good thing that you figured that out early in life.
Well, you say early. I don't. I'm at 37. I'm like I should have never been treating my kids that way because I look at this and this is probably maybe a little too raw. I don't know. But I look back at my kids who are 15 and a half and 17 or 15, good Lord, I don't have a 17-year-old, 15 and a half and 14 and think had I treated them different, would we be in the same place that we're in today?
Right.
Well, and this might have something to do with Cindy being the mom figure, but even just seeing Dad, how he raised my sister and I versus Mallory. But I'm kind of like, I think we were the trial run, which is fine. I no regrets, whatever.
We said this earlier. Literally said this earlier.
Trial run.
We said this earlier. That
I was the mistake. The trial run.
if you know Holly thinks about retirement, that's scary because you're talking about uncharted territory. When you have your first kid, it's 100% uncharted territory. It doesn't matter what anybody tells you. The world's leading experts can tell you how to raise that child, and you get an Easton. Listen, he was going to behavioral therapy. This is no joke. He was going to behavioral therapy. Now, mind you, I have 3 kids before him: Aaron, Aiden, and Emmett. Completely different kids compared to Easton. So Easton goes to behavioral therapy to help, work through the anxiety and whatever it is that creates those problems. And she's like, have you ever tried role playing with him? Lady, when he's screaming at me, the only thing I'm trying to do is not punch him. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, they can give you all of the professional advice they want, but it doesn't work for every kid. There are some, so raising Holly Jane is different than me raising Aaron. Raising, any of our kids is all different than somebody else raising theirs. You can have all the advice you want, but the fact remains that it's never going to be the same.
No. Well, and depending on your circumstances, like if you were a stay-at-home mom and he's working 2 jobs or 1 job or working at home, every circumstance is different.
I'll tell you, when Alyssa got pregnant with Emmett, and I've probably shared this story not on the podcast, but just personally, I was so unaware when the mother of my oldest 2 children, when she had our babies. I was there, but I was not present. Do you know what I mean? And I remember when Alyssa had Emmett, she suffered with postpartum. I had no idea what that was. So there was a point where if I would walk in the room, she would take the baby and leave. And I would try to speak to her and she would be very short and very almost mean. And I'd never experienced that. Like, she didn't want me to touch the baby. Like, I had no idea what was happening. Even after Easton, I didn't quite get it. It wasn't until Adeline came around that I realized that, like, hey, this isn't me.
Right.
But this is something I need to help her through. That nobody prepares you for that stuff. But I also realized how unpresent I was
with the first 2.
So, and you look back, that relationship ended very poorly. Like, it was fighting, and I mean, we fought over the kids for years, and just all of the trauma that went into that for her, for myself, and for those kids. And now I'm sitting here like, how much damage did I do to her in those years? I mean, and kids say the same for her having done to me, but like, it takes a lot of maturity to get to that point to realize that everything you do can affect other people. And it's funny, there are some people who went to school with me, and even their mom, I would say, probably thinks this to some degree, like, well, those people are in deep trouble having him as a pastor because she knows the old me.
Right.
There are some people, some members of our church who have children who were in school with me or knew me from school, and they are like, well, how are you going to his church?
I've had people say that to me, then they come and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't know what I was
Yeah,
saying. I'm like,
it's completely different. Right, that's what I'm saying.
I
So
said, give him a chance.
yeah, and I feel like, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I feel like people don't give enough grace for how
No.
much we grow in a short amount of time.
Well, they're worldly. They don't
Yes.
understand that you can change
And
like that.
my change came from marrying Alyssa and understanding that there are two sides to every situation. So like I have, might be too much, I don't know. I have always tended to lean very conservative. Like I don't deny this. I voted for Donald Trump in 2016, but it wasn't until 2017 that I started to like really open my eyes to like, what does it mean to understand somebody who doesn't think like I think? That's not how life was growing up for me. Do you know what I mean? And my parents are wonderful people, so don't take this the wrong way. But if black people were in our neighborhood, they're like, what are they up to? Do you know what I mean? So you grow up with a certain amount of that inside of you. And so that's like, it's troubling to think about. But my childhood, my upbringing made me who I am because it allowed me to see through all of that and realize that's not who I am.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's now. Don't get me wrong. It's still hard. My wife has some family who is African American. They're black, and like when they come to visit, I'm very uncomfortable, and not because I don't like them or not because, but I wasn't like
Your upbringing.
well, and I'm afraid that I'm going to say something that's offensive or like they're not interested in Pokemon. Do you know what I mean? Like,
you wouldn't say
I know,
that.
I know. But so, and then I look at that like I feel bad because I'm not supporting my wife in the relationships that she's trying to have with these people. So I say all of that to say this: don't shortchange yourself because of who you were growing up. Define who you are as an adult. Like that makes a huge difference. And really, honestly, stop doubting what you're capable of because that's childhood trauma will make you doubt what you're capable of.
Oh yeah.
Imposter syndrome is for real. Like it's a real thing. I go to work for a multi-million-dollar company every day running this thing. And every day I walk into my office and I say, how did I end up here? Because I'm not worthy of any of this. I'm not worthy of pastoring the group of people that we have here. I'm not worthy of being friends with some of the friends that I have. That's how I feel, but none of that is true because I have been ordained for such a time as this.
Right.
And be it in that company or in the church or in this friends group, whatever it is what it is, and that's where I'm supposed to be. And I have to be confident in that. So it's hard stuff.
I know as growing up, my dad, if he said this to me once in my life, he said it 1,000 times. Holly, if you can't do it right, don't do it at all.
Yeah.
What a terrible mindset.
Yep.
Because what that caused me to do? Nothing.
Not try. Yeah. Because I don't know if I can do it. And so I don't want to do it and screw it up because somebody's going to be disappointed in me.
That or you become a perfectionist and that's
Which is equally as bad.
I think I have a little bit of that.
Yeah. Well, certainly because
too.
there's again, it's a two-edged sword. So I'm not going to do anything unless I can be perfect at it. So now the things that I'm going to do, I'm going to try to be perfect
But
at.
I do believe that I overcame that mindset though, because I can go forward and be confident that whether it's right or wrong, I've done my best as unto the Lord.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I had to come with that because I'm not about pleasing man.
Well, and I said last week when Emmett didn't do well at his soccer game, the first thing that I said to him was, did you give it everything you had? And he said, yes. Okay, that's all I can ask.
all that matters.
That's right.
That's all I can ask. That team was really good. There's no reason in saying you guys played like a bunch of little girls. You know what I mean? Like there's no fruit in that.
No.
But again, that's my childhood making me somebody different because I don't want to feel that way.
Well, and I think a lot of that anymore is, and it's not you. I know you're not trying to live through your child in soccer because you never played. Or
No,
anything,
I
but-
hated sports.
But
Still do.
so many people are like, oh, well, since I didn't get that
Yeah.
college scholarship, my daughter is going to get it. And then next thing you know, you're talking to the coach and giving her an extra $20 to, make her start and this and that. And it's,
I will say this. This is one thing that probably in that avenue is I don't live vicariously through my children, but I give them every opportunity to do things that I couldn't do.
Oh yeah, there's a difference.
Big difference. I mean, kind of, because like all 3 of my kids are taking piano lessons. I'm hoping one of them is the next Elton John. Can we just like get a rich one?
Right? Yeah.
Please. But I've always wanted to play piano and I couldn't. But they all they were like, we want to do piano lessons, so they were excited to get to do it. It wasn't me forcing them.
Yeah.
But so I like. Into perspective, I did theater in high school. That was it. Fall play, spring musical, and show choir for maybe 3 years. My kids, so let's start with Adeline. Gymnastics, cheer, 2 different kinds of dance at this point. Emmett does regular soccer, fall soccer, and then he does indoor soccer in the winter, and then he does spring soccer. Okay. He's going to do winter basketball this year, I think. Easton's going to do basketball. He did flag football. What else did Easton do? Maybe that's it. And then they all do piano.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a lot of stuff, right? Now, Alyssa's niece and nephew tells us, you guys must be rich if you can afford all of that. But really what it is we'll sacrifice our own desires so that our kids can do those things because we want them to have memorable childhoods.
Yeah.
Right.
I would rather them remember that they got to go and play soccer or got to go to dance or got to learn all of these things versus like my dad was never home.
Right. Yeah.
Or, mom never left.
Yeah.
She was always at home because she couldn't leave because of us.
Yeah.
Like, I would rather my kids have good childhood memories than the things that could be traumatic.
Now, I will say my uncle has always emphasized this because my grandma was worked midnights and was always either working or sleeping, and they also lived in the country. So, like, no one was going to come out and get them for practice and this and that. So he never played baseball or football. I think there were 4 of them growing up. So none of them did. But it's like, but he was outside 188 acres. How many kids can say that with 2 ponds to hunt, to fish year round, And he's like, I'm fortunate for that,
Yeah.
So
every childhood is different. Do you know what I mean? My kids live in a neighborhood where I can let them go outside and play without a fence around our yard, and I don't worry about them. So their childhood is going to have memories of being safe.
Yeah.
That's one thing my kids will always be able to say. Even the 2 oldest boys who didn't live with us full time will always be able to say when they were at Dad's house, they were always safe. Oh, there's no drug use. There's no alcohol use. There's no, you don't have strangers in and out of the door 24/7. Like, there were rules and we were safe, but we knew we had everything we could ever want. So,
yeah.
And I think right now, like, Holly, you're helping to raise Remy. Obviously, I don't want to say raising because he's with his mom, but you guys keep him weekends and whenever they need somebody. And so you're instilling in him values that he may not get otherwise.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
You're going to do that when you have children. I'm doing that with my children now. My 2 big boys hate church. It's not that they hate church. It's that church isn't cool.
Right.
They're high school age kids. Church isn't cool. They weren't raised in church like Adeline, Easton, and Emmett have been. Those kids have only known church.
Yeah.
Right.
They haven't known anything different. And so they're like, oh, we're going to the church tonight.
Yeah.
Go watch TV in the nursery and play with the Legos. Like, it doesn't even faze them to be here 3 nights a week.
Yeah.
Ride on the golf cart through the parking lot. Whatever crazy stuff they do. But Emmett came out and mowed the grass yesterday. The front of the building. That's a big deal. Like, he wants to serve. So
It looked very nice.
Yeah.
yeah.
And we have a huge advantage being where we are.
Yeah.
I remember visiting Baltimore. We went to an Orioles game. We were just there for a day or 2. And our hotel was right across the street from this church. Well, the church, and we were there on Sunday, and we saw people going into the church, and they had to have police outside the building, to make sure those people got in and out safely.
Right.
Think about that. A lot of people, we joke about the West Side over here, but but no, no. I mean, we're completely safe here, but there are people that, and of course, I'm going to assume that children go to that church. So they're walking into church, and yet maybe they feel unsafe going into church. You know,
Could be
so-
their like most unsafe place they go. all
Yeah,
week
it
or
might
something.
be.
Yeah.
It might be. So, we can't take for granted how great we have it, and we have to consider the challenges that other children are having.
Yeah.
In different parts of the country, depending on where they live. That it's
That's right.
We've said this about kids in the past. Not everybody starts on an equal footing.
right. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Look at just how we were raised. We didn't all start in the same place. So, there are kids who are growing up in the country, not able to get to those things.
Right.
Their life is different than the kid who lives in the city who's able to do those. But that looks different than the kids who live in an inner city,
Right.
where wherever they go, it's potentially dangerous.
Yeah.
So there is no such thing. I mean, and I'm sure we can talk about, race and gender and, all of those things to some degree play a part in that inequality of the footing. And it may not be them. It may be because of their parents weren't cared for properly or whatever. There's always some sort of history that will create
Background.
that creates who these kids are and how they'll grow up. So
Yeah.
Ooh, that was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Is it time already?
Yeah, we're actually
Time.
hour and 10 minutes. So
Yeah.
any other pieces of parting wisdom before we go? No? Okay, well, we'll come back and do this again next week. I'll tell you what, Sid, since this was your topic, you get to pray us out tonight, okay?
Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I just thank you for this evening that we've had, the time of fellowship that we, had to share what all of our childhoods looked like when it came to our faith and whether or not it was there or not. I just, thank you that we are all able to come and do that every single week, Lord. I just pray that this touches whoever needs to listen to it, today, tomorrow, 5 years from now, Lord. I pray for travel mercies in your name. Amen.
Amen.